Hi, I'm Cal Clark. Along with my wife Joan, we started Clark's Corvair Parts in 1973. The first 20 years we concentrated on doing some reproductions, but mainly make sure that the business was able to survive. The last 20 years we've done many more reproductions, and we're going to show you some of the more popular ones in this video. I'm starting off with the 1965 to 69 molded hood insulation. We've also done both fenders. These are all molded. They're seamed where they should be. They're slit where they should be. As close as we could to the factory originals. It took us nearly 20 years to find a company that even knew what we were talking about and was still able to produce these. I'll show you as many different REPRO parts as I can in 15 minutes. In no particular order, but there'll be ones for early cars, late cars, and vans. This is the car gas tank, 61 to 69. We did the initial order of 500 tanks many years ago and have since been able to supply thousands. This is our most recent reproduction. This is the FC gas tank. We also recently did the 1960, the 61 to 65 FC, and also the early and late car gas sender units out of stainless steel. I'll try to give you some close-ups of the various parts. On some of the chrome parts it's going to be difficult with reflections, so I'll just do the best I can. Padded dashes were one of the first reproduction projects we ever did. This turquoise one is an early model, fits 61 to 63 cars. And this one fits 65 and 66. On the back side you can see the foam that's molded right in place. We offer a quality line of consoles. The blue one is for an early model with a standard transmission. The shift lever comes up through this boot. And this one fits 65 to 69s. They're even nicely finished inside. If you've ever wanted a real set of knockoff wheels, this is your chance. This is our second run of this really quality REPRO. The quantity that we're required to order is very large. So when we do sell out, it would probably be at least 5 years before we would even consider a rerun. These are the two types of heater hoses that we have. This one is very close to the original fabric, and we've only been able to find one company left that will even make those. This is what we consider our rubber ones, but they certainly are not like your average dryer hose. This is able to take years and years of use in a Corvair. Our catalog lists every harness for every model Corvair. If you haven't considered replacing your wiring harness, please do. It'll be bad enough to be stranded some night, but just imagine how upset you're going to be if your Corvair goes up in an electrical fire. All the connections, most of the colors are exactly like the original. It can plug into just part of the harness, but I highly suggest after all these years that you just replace the whole harness. I do realize it gets expensive, but it's well worth the peace of mind. These are custom shift knobs that we just added to our new catalog. They're available in natural aluminum with the black engraving and black anodized. We have them to fit both cars and vans. I'll admit I've got a couple collector cars that aren't Corvairs, and I know firsthand the frustration of ordering custom brake lines and fuel lines, and they just don't fit. Because of that, years ago, we had all our own lines made to our own specs. It's going to fit. Some of the long brake lines and fuel lines end up with yellow tags like you see on this one, and that's where you just have to bend it to make it straight. Since our second year in business, we've offered Clevite 77 bearings, but recently the costs have continued to escalate and the supply has been quite spotty. Because of this, we recently had bearings specifically made for us to equal or surpass the quality of the Clevite bearings. We can now supply every normal size at a considerable savings. This is one of our full fin cylinders. We now have these for 61 through 69s. Many people feel that the full fin design helps give additional cooling and added strength. When we had these designed, we had them go oversize on the thickness of the wall so that in the future, when they're bored to 40 to 60 thousandths over, they'll still be equal to the original wall thickness. We also offer these bored to oversizes for those that want it. We started selling TRW forged pistons our second year in business. Some years ago, they were purchased by Seal Power, and some changes were made to the piston. We've checked and checked with them, but they still claim that these are definitely a forged piston. It's just inside they appear to us like more of a cast piston. Because of that, we started selling a forged piston that is forged and machined here in the United States. The inside of this piston looks much more to us like what we remember the old TRW forged looking. The look is hard to explain, but if you've seen an old TRW forged piston and you see ours, you would see the similarity. Most Corvair pistons are slotted in the oil control ring. This is the weakest part of a Corvair piston and is the way the Seal Power forged pistons are made. Our forged pistons are done with drilled holes, leaving more aluminum and more strength. During the last 10 years, we've reproduced just about every Corvair cable. The cables here are the FC clutch cables and accelerator cables, an early car clutch cable, an early car front emergency brake cable. We have all the rear brake cables done in the original wrapped style. Many years ago, we reproduced the late model clutch cables, and we've also done the early and late car power glide cables. During 2012, we released our brand new 61 to 63 transmission mounts, 1964 transmission mount, and the 65 through 69 transmission mount. The early style motor mounts are due out in the spring or summer of 2013. And hopefully we'll have the 66 through 69 style before the end of 2013. I can't stress enough the importance of checking your brass brake blocks when you're doing your brake job. You'll probably find that after all these years, the brass flare has been distorted by the brake lines. This can lead to leakage even with brand new brake lines. We've been selling dual master cylinder conversion kits for all Corvair cars and vans for over 10 years. You get detailed instructions and everything you need to put the unit in just a couple hours. We fashioned our Corvair oil filter after what we felt was one of the best AC designs and have sold 15,000 of them. In the spring of 2013, we are coming out with our second generation, which has some minor changes to the top retaining ring to make it more secure and also allow it to fit better onto the various oil filter adapters. This is the prototype of the wagon hinge covers. The production is due in any day. The actual production samples are black. We painted this one white, hoping that it would show up a little better on the video. We really try to offer a good variety of parts that you might need for your Corvair. A late model front door hinge, wagon and FC license plate light, also the wiring unit that goes with it, the mushroom for the early model rear axle bearing, late model original style dust cap, and the earlies are due in a few months. 66 to 69 backup switch, early style backup switch, our latest run of input shafts, which I feel are superior to any GM ever made. We just did the floats this last year. We've had REPRO thermostats for over 20 years. But even the small parts, for carburetors, these are special screws for vans. More carburetor parts, clips for brake lines, an early model clip for brake lines. Here we have the FC taillight and reflector. The combined tooling for those were about $12,000. The reflectors came out beautifully. In fact, they reflect more than the original GM reflectors. We also now have the accelerator pedal for the early style FC. A few years ago, we reproduced the early car and FC rear axle bearings. We now have a full kit with shims, the rubber seals, the correct swivel action bearing units. However, if you have an FC, please notice we have less than 300 sets left, and the company will only rerun 1,000 sets. I just don't believe I can afford to do that. Most of our emblems are as good, if not better, than any of the NOS that I had saved. Better than NOS? Take a look at these late model sun visor brackets and our early model door handles that we just came out with. We also have the late model outside door handles, and they are just as nice. Better than NOS? Just try our latest reproduction of the 63 to 64 taillights. Original connectors, rubber grommets and boots, but the finish just far superior to any NOS that I'd saved for myself. We do have a few reproduction parts that we just could not afford to spend the high amounts of tooling, and yet we wanted to offer them to people. This is one of those parts. It's for the 64 heater outlet in a convertible. Very nice, very usable, just not quite as nice as the originals. 10 years ago, I was so disappointed with what was available on the market for suspension parts that we tooled up and made all our own suspension parts. We tried to make them much more like the originals. In a few cases, we improved them, such as the idler arms. We added grease fittings. And we made the tie rods look more like the originals. New for the 2013 catalog is original style antennas, complete with original instructions and templates. We now have original early front and rear, and late model front and rear. These are available only in the round mast. Everything visible above the fender appears original. However, they may not appear original underneath the fender where it doesn't show. We've repro'd way too many parts for just one video, so search for the Clark Repro Parts video Part 2. This green package area is one of our repros for a 1960 four-door with a non-fold-down rear seat.